And it's a big week this week with all of our politicians returning to Canberra. Half of them seem to have been overseas, but back to the nation's capital they are now, ready for tomorrow's first sitting under the new Anthony Albanese Labor government. There are many times in the past couple of decades that title would have sounded like the punchline to a joke, but it's been a reality now for a full 2 months. And as you know, certainly in my view, Albanese and his team, especially Foreign Minister Penny Wong, have done an impressive job on international affairs, on ensuring this country remains steadfast on standing up to China and is proactive about engaging with the Pacific Island nations and with working closely with Indonesia as well as with India, Japan and, of course, our great ally, the US. So that's the good news. But oh boy, they're going to have some strife at home. Inflation, the soaring cost of living, an energy crisis, power prices suddenly heading skywards again, a mortgage crunch by the end of the year, labour shortages, possibly a global recession. There's no shortage of economic challenges. And as if this is not going to be difficult enough, the Albanese government is going to make all of this a whole lot harder for itself and for the country and for us by indulging its climate change obsession, by forgetting about what's affordable, what's practical and what will actually have any environmental benefit, and doing what the virtue signallers want.
We've already submitted our nationally determined contribution, our climate change target, to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change of 43%, consistent with what we took to the election.
Yep, he's already made a commitment to the United Nations, the real drivers of Labor's climate policy. And in this first sitting fortnight of Parliament, the Albanese Labor government will introduce legislation it doesn't really need, by the way, but legislation that will make the 43% emissions reduction target by 2030 the law of the land.
Climate change is a national security issue. That is well understood throughout the world, but nowhere more so than with our Pacific neighbours.
Now, we've all seen this movie before, the old climate wars. They are on again. And the Greens could be the spoilers all over again, as they were, of course, for Kevin Rudd 12 years ago, always prepared to let the alarmist extreme be the enemy of the climate action mandate.
The target is too weak, and it's not just us who's saying that, Pacific Islanders are saying that. We know that this target is consistent with more bleaching of the reef, crop failures, worse fires and floods.
You know, if the Greens block this legislation in the Senate, it'll create a shambles. It might even tear the opposition apart if some Liberals cross the floor to help Labor out. Remember, Malcolm Turnbull crossed the floor in 2010 to vote for Rudd's emission reduction plan. But the real problem here is not the politics. The real problem is what Labor will do to our energy grid. Despite the fact we've already gone too far down the renewable energy path under the coalition, despite the fact that too much baseload power has been scrapped, too much coal generation axed, not enough gas generation commissioned, well, despite the fact this has led to power shortages and power price hikes, an energy crisis, Labor is promising to double down. We need dispatchable power, but Labor wants more renewable energy. We need more reliable power, but we're going to get more intermittent renewable energy, more unreliable power. This, while we increase our energy needs, while we try to switch to electric cars, and while we try to keep manufacturing industries and jobs in this country. This is the very definition of madness. And that's why the Albanese Labor government's top order of business is the very same priority that will lead to its demise. If Labor gives us more electricity price hikes and more power shortages in the name of futile climate gestures, it won't get a second term. Unless, of course, the coalition is stupid enough to keep going down that same crazy path.